The Michael Hatfield RE team presents Real Estate and More.
Bay Area real estate is different than in all of America. And why? What's up with home buyers? What's on sellers' minds? How is the market? And much, much more.
Now, here's your host, Michael Hatfield.
Today on the world stage, we recently visited an area of the world that is not only popular but an incredibly romantic destination. I am talking about Venice, Italy, or Venice, known to most people. Welcome to the Real Estate and More show. I'm so glad you're with us today, and I've brought on board my best critic, my partner and wife, Nancy, and she can give us some really good topics and points about this lovely and romantic city. When it comes to travel, we both love to do it. We don't get to do it all the time. Most of these trips we just call trips of a lifetime, but this one definitely was. Welcome to the show, Nance.
Thanks, Michael. Glad to be here.
Oh, it's great. You know, this year we had the hankering to go to revisit the wonderful city of Venice, and it was one of the most romantic cities in the world, with stunning mansions on the canals that are so numerous. It's just incredible. It has this old world charisma and charm. You don't find it anywhere, do you?
I think it's one of a kind, and you're right there on the water. I love it.
You bet. When you first arrive in Venice at the Marco Polo airport, you know, I would recommend treating yourself to a water taxi to take you into the old city. It's true that you can take a Uber, or you could actually do a bus to the Santa Croce area, but that's the end of it. But in the old city, really getting into it, there's nowhere that you can go with anything other than a water taxi or a gondola or walk, which is good because as we get more vintage, we need our steps, do we not?
And be prepared to walk with your suitcase. That's all I have to say. So this trip was, we stayed at the Santa Chiara Croce Hotel, and it was located as far as you could go by road. So we took an Uber on this one, and we began at the old city and its, area of the canals where they started. So, of course, it's breathtaking. And it was a very lovely remodeled hotel. I don't know when it was built.
I thought they did a great job remodeling the hotel right there, and I didn't feel we were disadvantaged by being at the end of the road before you were not able to take the road anymore. Did you?
I actually appreciated it because I have had to drag my suitcase through the little pathways of Venice in a very long distance, so I thought it was kind of nice this time. But in Venice, there are 6 districts, and you can say the word nicely.
Sestieri.
Yes, thank you so much. And the areas are San Marco, San Polo, which is the oldest, Dorsoduro, which is a student district. The next one is
Canario.
Yes, which is the world's first ghetto, I understand. Castello, which is the most authentic side of Venice. And then Santa Croce, the district that opens the doors of the city to you, which I guess that was the area that we decided to stay in this time.
Yeah, the Sestieri of San Marco, they call it Wonders of Venice. And of course, it encapsulates the San Mark Square, which is the Basilica, and the Doge Palace, which we'll talk about momentarily.
Right. Lovely. So the history of the old city of Venice is very rich. It was formed from villages that were placed in marshy areas back in 421 AD. And that's when the city of Venice was actually founded. The reason the villagers were formed it was that the Goths, I understand, were pillaging and looting on the mainland southbound on their way towards Rome, and villagers and fishermen, they just simply had to hide, so that's what they did. These same locals had to flee the marshy islands and lagoon.
To the marshy islands,
right,
yeah,
to the marshy islands.
And the lagoon.
Yep. And it was at that time the city of Venice was actually formed.
So they came off of the mainland part, and they went down into the marsh, and they hid away so that the Goths wouldn't get them as they were pillaging their way down towards Rome. Kind of interesting, is it not?
It is. They found a way to survive. It was very, very smart.
421 AD. But, you know, pieces of Venice were available all the way back to the days of Roman Empire, and actually 421 is included in the Roman Empire, but back to the time of Nero, I understand there's history there. So sometime before the 9th century, brave Venetian merchants stole the relics of Saint Mark the Evangelist and his body and remains as well from Alexandria, Egypt. And they placed him in St. Mark's Basilica in St. Mark's Square. And they're there today, I understand.
St. Mark's Square, what a place. So can you tell me about the hugely famous bridge in Venice, the Rialto, Michael?
Well, I know you like the Rialto Bridge because they have these stores that line each side of the bridge.
You do.
And one store there is leather goods that are very reasonable to purchase and relatively good quality there. And I know that's why you like it. And it's also a wonderful place to where you can take your pictures of your loved ones and your bride with a beautiful Grand Canal background. So the Rialto Bridge has been there for a long time. It's very romantic, especially on warm evenings, and you'll be able to enjoy the small shops as well.
So much fun. I love it. So wherever we go, we love to dine, and we love to go to the local spots to dine. We seek those out. We try and miss tourist spots sometimes and just see, adventure. And Venice does not disappoint you, for sure. On small canals, pathways, alleyways, it's easy to discover excellent cafes and restaurantes that serve that local cuisine and the fabulous local wines that we did enjoy some of. And after some walking and spending an hour or so on our trip looking at the Rialto Bridge for those must-buy items, it was great to sit with our friends and enjoy meals of pastas and salads and delicious veggies and, of course, a little Prosecco. So that was all very lovely.
For a former airline pilot, I've always liked to go where the locals go because they know the best place for the best value. And, the area of Venetia is famous for wines and its specialty foods, and it's just a wonderful place. Plus, it's a very romantic city. Would you not? I want you to be prepared for it. I knew this guy one time and took his fiance to Venice, and it was just a vacation. And guess what? He came back married.
Imagine that. It's really no surprise because it is so lovely. So let's talk about a typical day, what it might look like spending time in Venice. As we continue to meander through Venice on our trip, we recommend searching out new adventures in the museums, just soaking up the history that everywhere you look, you see history and jaw-dropping architecture. It's just it's just such a feast for your eyes. And you need to stop at the Vinci shop that specializes in gelato and chocolates, and then later relax at an outdoor cafe and have pizza. Of course, got to have some pizza. So that was great. We did that. And when we were there, do you recall, there was a white German shepherd frolicking out in the square with its buddy and just running around. It was a neighborhood area that we visited, and that was really delightful.
Well, I think they were boy and girl there, Nance.
Okay, Michael, got it.
Well, on that same afternoon before returning to our hotel, we like to have these little appetizer party, a little party, like with our friends, before we go out to have our formal dinner and have maybe a glass of wine or whatever. And on that, just go into the local neighborhood stores that they have in Venice. It's very fascinating. You can see their local meats, their salumi, their cheeses, the specialty bread, which
yum.
is just yum. I noticed that everything seems to be so fresh over there. And I understand that the flour that they use is more or it's less genetically engineered than what we see here in the United States. So everything is great. And just remember that everybody eats late in Venice.
They do. 9:00 is a perfect time to go to dinner in Venice.
Yes. You're listening to the Real Estate and More show on Venice, Italy. It's World Stage, Venice, Italy. I'm your host, Michael Hatfield. I have Nancy here helping me out today. Please be so kind. If you think about it, or please be so kind, just go to our YouTube channel at My Real Talk Show. That's at My Real Talk Show on YouTube. If you'd be so kind, I would really appreciate if you'd push that subscribe and a like button. And now let's get back and talk some more with Nancy. She's got a question or two for all of us to think about.
No, just no questions. Just a statement that in the evenings when you're in Venice, we would suggest taking a relaxing evening stroll, pre-dinner stroll along the Grand Canal, which is just breathtaking, and admire the sunset. Breathe in the air, the water air, gorgeous, interesting scenery to observe. And of course, if you have friends or loved ones, just enjoy that, soak that up. And the city is just truly altogether lovely. Great cuisine, outstanding surroundings, and friends, and maybe friends you haven't met.
Yeah. Hey, what is the most famous art gallery in Venice that you think is the most famous, Nancy?
Well, in Venice, I think it's the one that's called the Guggenheim Collection Museum. And Peggy Guggenheim, if you've heard of her, she was an heiress of the U.S. mining magnate Solomon Guggenheim. And she built her own collection of prominent Italian, futurist, and American modernist artists, eventually donating that to her Venice Museum. And the collection, it's really very interesting. It has several pieces from many different artists like Picasso, and some there are, I don't know how to describe them, actually. Maybe you could, Michael.
Well, I might have to read ahead and find out a little bit more about them, but it's an interesting collection. And she traveled the world, and then she set up residence in Venice as well as New York, I understand, too, and founded this museum. And it has a lot of really wonderful pieces of art in there. If you're an artist, I'm not too sure that I am.
The day that we went actually to that museum on this recent trip, we were walking through all the pathways in Venice, and we had to stop for a traditional Venetian snack called cacchetti or something of that sort. And it's really neat because it's little sliced baguettes, and they top them with all different kinds of spreads, and cream codfish, I guess, is one traditional, meatballs, cheeses, and delicious, just delicious.
Yeah. What's really cool is that our traveling partners have a restaurant, a very good restaurant. So I think I could be taking a liberty when maybe not taking a liberty when I say that they're foodies, because they like to check this out, check that out. They like fine wines, they like fine cuisine, and in Venice it's just so well known for food and the drinks that you just gotta love to go back. And then it also inspires that romantic thing. And remember, I warned all you single guys about that, and single women, you bring your special fiance over that you could be in trouble before you get back. Well, I want to talk one thing about Harry's Bar. Are you all aware of Harry's Bar? It's a sure destination. It's not really that special, but the history is special. It's right on the Grand Canal near St. Mark's Square. It originated in 1931, and Giuseppe Cipriani, he opened the bar, and they catered to painters, artists, aristocrats, kings, VIPs, this type of deal. Katharine Hepburn probably sat in your seat that you were there. Gary Cooper, people like Peggy Guggenheim, Orson Welles, Frank Lloyd Wright, Joe DiMaggio, and Ernest Hemingway, all visitors of Harry's Bar. So you don't want to miss Harry's Bar. You've got to go in there and get your customary cocktail while you're in Venice.
Or a drink just to soak up the atmosphere and say you went to Harry's Bar, I guess. So in Venice, one of the things you could also do is just delight in the vegetable and fruit markets that they have along the canals. They do business on small boats, and they're jam-packed with fresh fruits and veggies that just look so appealing.
There was this one boat that was it was full of fresh vegetables. It had an awning on it sitting right there in one of the little canals, and there were also fresh vegetables. It was incredible.
I know. It made you want to eat them and be extra healthy that day.
Absolutely. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Remax.
And here's Michael Hatfield.
750 Ruth Drive is a rare opportunity to live in the desirable and delightful neighborhood community of College Park in Pleasant Hill. Delight in this tasteful, single-level home that's newly refreshed with attractive updates. Now it's someone's dream home. Enjoy 2 to 3 bedrooms, a living room, a huge family room, and a dining area in a total living space of 1,550 square feet. With newly refinished hardwood floors, luxury vinyl flooring, updated baths, and new paint inside and out. Just imagine how all will enjoy family and friends gatherings in this home. The charming character of this Pleasant Hill dream home impresses and just awaits for you to make it your own. Call us now.
Get help with buying or selling by calling the Michael Hatfield RE/MAX Support Team at 1-800-800-5763. That's 1-800-800-5763.
And now, back to our show.
What are those long black boats with oars attached that you see everywhere along the canals?
Oh my gosh. Gondolas, and they're gondoliers, the people that navigate the boats, these long black boats with turned up at the front and turned up at the back, and they have these nice comfy seats in them. They've been doing this for 1,000 years. A long, long time. It used to be a way that they delivered food from market to the mansions that were on the canals. And then it turned into a tourist thing, and that's what's done today. They used to sing, but we didn't hear anybody singing this time.
I don't think we did. Maybe we weren't in the right spots.
Yeah,
we did take our share of water taxis.
Yeah, it was disappointing because in the past when we've been there, we've heard these gondoliers singing in Italian and echoing off the walls of the buildings that line the small canals. It was just impressive and romantic.
Maybe it's a new age of gondoliers.
Maybe it is.
I don't know.
Maybe it is. I like the Academia Bridge. For taking pictures, you get on the top of the Academia Bridge on your way to the Guggenheim, and the backdrop is just impressive with all of the water taxis and the gondolas and the boats going through and around. It's just really, really beautiful, and it's a definite photo opportunity there.
It's charming is what I would say. Really charming. So while we were there, my friend and I just loved, we came across this adorable and lovely flower shop.
Now, folks, they got in trouble here.
Shh, don't tell anybody. And it was just beautiful. The flowers, I mean, it was just stunning. We couldn't stop looking at it, and we did kind of touch a flower too.
A big sign right in front of them. Do not touch the flowers.
We were not supposed to be doing that.
No.
Whoops, we didn't see that sign. So anyways, and I just love the bridges over the canals, and it's just beautiful. And I guess they didn't know the private bridges. Were these private bridges at one time?
Back in the day.
What about that?
Back in the day, all of the bridges were, not all of them, but I would say a good portion of them were all private bridges over the canals, and they would charge, back in the day, they would charge people toll to cross those bridges. But now they're all free and nobody's charging you, and you might find a mandolin player or a violin player playing Vivaldi at one side of it in the evening when you're taking your walk to go to dinner. It just is an amazing place for scenery and ambiance.
Well, maybe that's where tolls started for bridges. What do you think?
Oh, it could be. Could be. Hey, by the way, do you know where Venice got its wealth historically?
I don't think I know.
Oh, yes, you do.
I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a city of wealth that began in the 9th century, and this wealth was derived primarily from maritime mercantilism. And by the 16th century, and people don't really know about this, and although Venice is located on the tip of the Adriatic, it became the center of Mediterranean trade as well. It was a trading capital of the world. Incredible.
Kind of neat.
Hey, by the way, do you know how many people reside in Italy, Venice, right now?
around 260 residents, of which 51,000 or 50,000 live in the island city. So anyways,
yeah. Well, tell me about St. Mark's Square.
Okay, so St. Mark's Square, this is the centerpiece, right? The centerpiece of St. Mark's is the St. Mark's Basilica, which is outstanding to see. It was built in the era of the,
836.
Okay, 836. An interesting story from the 9th century tells how a fleet of 10 Venetian trading vessels sought shelter from the city of Alexandria.
Not from the city, from weather.
During a storm. And Alexandria, two of these Venetian merchants, oh my gosh. Went to pray at St. Mark's.
Let me say it. Two of the Venetian merchants were very interested when they found that they were going to tear down a church that housed the remains of the Apostle Mark.
Okay.
And so they secreted out the remains and the relics of St. Mark's from Alexandria, Egypt. They secreted out in a basket with pork over the top of it, and they took them all the way back to Venice.
Okay.
And then the relics of St. Mark's and the remains were placed with the Doge, which then eventually placed it in the altar of the St. Mark's Basilica. Really interesting story, and a lot of people during that time said that it made the city famous and gave it worth because it was housing the relics of the Apostle Mark.
Well, if you love history or just think you might be interested in history, you've got it all in Venice, I tell you. It is rather incredible. That's why it's one of those cities that you just never get tired of visiting. I mean, how lovely. So.
You know, they have this carnival there that we've never been there during the carnival, but it originated back in
1162.
Yep. But you'll find masks that are made that you could take home as souvenirs or whatever. But when this carnival comes to town, it swells the population considerably, and it is a really incredible carnival to go to.
And it's an annual celebration now, right?
Yeah. But back in 1162, people were pretty risque, and they wanted to do things with other people, and they didn't want their reputations to suffer, which was really I'm just talking about history here.
Right.
So they would create these masks, have the carnival, and it was just kind of crazy. They think they were pulling things over on everyone else. So it's not like that now, I understand.
Kind of interesting. So carnival masks have always been an important feature of that, right?
They have been.
Right. So anyways, let me see.
You know, it's long existed, as we mentioned at the beginning. Venice has long existed before 412 AD. And it's all the way back to the Roman times when it was created on a swamp.
Right.
And this has always been really interesting to me because the engineers took and drove these pilings down into the swamp, and they placed them right next to each other as close as they could, and then on top of there they put bricks, and they used what is that? It's a type of marble stone on top of it, and then they built the buildings on top of it. And they've always said, well, Venice is sinking. Well, not much. And they've been like that for, years and years and years and decades and centuries and so forth. But just an amazing how they built this city in a marsh, on a marsh.
Well, if you recall, going to St. Mark's Square in a rainy season, they put on the boardwalks, and you walk on boardwalks when there's rain, right? So that your feet aren't in, inches of water, but it's all very interesting. So how was water provided to citizens back in the day?
Well, they captured the rain, and the rain would go into the wells in the city, and people would use that rainwater thereafter as their actual drinking water.
So they could live there and okay. Yeah. So what's the other major component of St. Mark's Square?
The most powerful guy in the government of Venetia back in the day was the Doge. And he is the boss of everything. And the Doge Palace is located directly to the side of the St. Mark's Basilica.
Right.
And there's secret passageways in there too between the palace and the basilica. But the Doge maintained a lot of power. He was the supreme authority, over the former Republic of Venice. And, the Doge Palace was built back in 1340 and extended and modified many times in the following centuries. But it's been interesting. They kept that power until Napoleon came along, and he was working his way down to Rome, and he took over. The Doge just gave up. And if quote me there, I think it was like... it seemed like it was 1797, but I'm going to have to look that one up again.
Right. So the bridge
he took over. Napoleon.
Tell me about the Bridge of Sighs, because that's a very interesting,
to look at. It's pretty sad looking. The Bridge of Sighs is a bridge between the courtrooms of the Doge Palace and a prison that was built. And the people that would be sentenced would cross that bridge back in like 1600 when they were placed in these dungeons in the new prison.
Wow.
It's kind of sad, but the bridge is something to look at.
An interesting place you would never want to spend any time.
No, not me.
So the Doge Palace and the Basilica were built in, around 832?
832, yes.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
St. Mark's Basilica.
Yeah. Wow. Napoleon, he had quite a influence in that area, huh?
Right. He incredible. So, I noticed these odd-looking faces around at various places in town, in the old city.
Right.
Funny-looking faces. They're on the side of a wall, and then they had a big mouth. And what are those things called, and what do they do?
The big mouth. So, Bocca di Leone. They're like a big face of a lion, I think it is, right? They're called the lion's mouth. And in the olden times, way back then, the Bocca di Leone were used to receive secret notes that reported crimes on one's neighbors. Very fascinating. It's like tattling. They were tattling on each other.
Kind of like next door now, right?
Kind of like next door, yeah. And they were often abused. I'd like to know a little more history and stories of that. It's kind of fascinating.
So if I were angry at Nancy, I would take this note and say, she just threw her garbage over in someone else's yard, and I'd put a note in this Bocca di Leone, and then repercussions would happen from there. Yeah. Man, you could end up walking that Bridge of Sighs, which would not be fun, would it?
No, because you probably never come back over it, is what I think. So, geez.
Well, we've so enjoyed our show today, talking about the wonderfully romantic and historically rich city of Venice, Italy. Venetia. So interesting is the way that the city was constructed on those pilings. Its history of being the center of wealth from the 9th century through the 16th century. The carnival every year that started back in 1162. Awe-inspiring architecture and the foods and the cuisine and the wines. It just offers wonderfully pleasant visits, nice hotels. People are nice to you. It could actually be a retirement spot if you really would like to. A lot of people have done it. The very least is that you're going to enjoy any visit to Italy. So with that in mind, Nancy, thank you so much for being on the show today. It's wonderful to have your input and what you saw in the same city I saw when we were there this last time. It was just great.
Thanks, Michael. It was a great place to go to.
Thanks. You've been listening to the Real Estate and More show, and this one is the World Stage, Venice of Italy. It's our episode on that. Please go to @MyRealTalkShow. That's @MyRealTalkShow on YouTube. Push that subscribe and like button. We'd be more than appreciated. Make our day. We'll be right back with our next special guest. Please stay tuned.